Okay, we have been showering the universe with Utopia Planitia goodness, and as promised, we are back with another episode of Continuing Conversations, which will be focusing on Chapter 4 of the Utopia Planitia book, all the goodies of starships that are now replete in this book. I'm Michael Dismuke with Continuing Conversations, also a blogger on Continuing Missions, which is the #1 fan site for Star Trek Adventures RPG. I'm also a freelance writer for Modiphius in the Star Trek Adventures line. Jim, let's go ahead and introduce yourself and then go back to our special guests for today.
Sure thing. I'm Jim Johnson. I'm the project manager and line editor for the Star Trek Adventures RPG, published by Modiphius Entertainment. Co-host of this show, always happy to be here with Michael and our guests tonight, Thomas Marrone and Aaron Pollyea. Thomas, why don't you introduce yourself?
Pollyea.
Darn it. Oh, I always get it wrong.
That's okay. That's okay.
Remember, I got Marrone right, but I got Pollyea wrong. Dang it. All right. Go ahead, Thomas. Sorry.
Oh, it's fine. I'm Thomas Marrone. I'm the associate art director of Star Trek Online, and I have been drawing starships since I was probably like 8 years old, and that culminated recently into some of the ships that I designed and modeled actually showing up in Star Trek Picard season 2, it's certainly been a long road getting from there to here. But for my day job, I also get to play with starships. Overseeing the art team for Cryptic Studios' massive multiplayer game Star Trek Online, and I was lucky enough to contribute some of those ships to Utopia Planitia.
Now, Thomas, we have a rule here that when you say a certain line, you actually have to sing the song.
It's been a long road.
Exactly. Good.
You hold the tune better than I do.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
We'll do it at karaoke one day.
Yeah.
That's what we need. That's what we need, Michael, is a musical episode.
Well, I do plan to have an episode where we showcase everyone's show openers. So we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Aaron. Sorry.
And I'm Aaron Pollyea. I'm kind of the starship guy for Star Trek Adventures, plus science, technology, that kind of thing. I've been a freelance writer for Modiphius on the Star Trek Adventures line since the beginning. I'm a starship uber geek. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, for those of you who tuned in, you heard the history on one of our former podcasts about how Aaron had pretty much written this book, 5 years ago. He had all this information on planets or on starships, and finally, dream come true. We're Utopia Planitia. I have to ask, just because I keep up on social media. I know Jim, you do too. Thomas, I have a question for you because you're in touch with the STO crowd, the Star Trek Online crowd, which I think at my last check had like 779,000 people who touched that game at some point. What are you hearing right now about the Utopia Planitia book? Any interesting buzz?
Yeah, I mean, we've got people who are excited about the lore. They're certainly excited about seeing STO ships branch out into other places. With between Picard and Star Trek Adventures, it's exciting for people who've invested a lot of their own time and sort of fandom energy into Star Trek Online to see that being rewarded by having there's the Odyssey or the Gagarin or whatever in Star Trek Adventures. So they're really excited about that, and we've seen a lot of people. It was kind of cool. And we might get into this a bit more later, but we refreshed the model of the Odyssey class, the flagship USS Enterprise, for the book, because I wanted it to, you can't patch a book, right? So you want to make sure that the book has the best art it can, and that model is really old. So I think seeing that, and like that kind of shocked people, because we didn't really announce it or anything. It was just sort of like people, STO players got the book because they heard the STO ships were in it, and then they got to the page with the Odyssey and they're like, oh wow, this is like totally different. What's this about? And so that's generated some buzz too. Nice. Which has been really great.
Nice. So always nice that we can surprise our fans once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody wants to be on the leading edge of info and knowledge. So that's cool. Well, today, what we're going to be doing is focusing on the fleet. We're going to be focusing on chapter 4 of the Utopia Planitia book and asking questions to Thomas and Aaron, since they are our resident experts on everything starship design, about what stands out to them about those chapters, what they want you to know about those chapters. And what's really cool about this episode, it's scheduled to air on October 14th, which is a day before the Saturday event of Fleet Week. And this is a partnership between Modiphius, Star Trek Online, and Streampunks. Streampunks, of course, Clear Skies and all that. Great demonstration of how to play Star Trek adventures. So this is kind of a really good addition to that week, to Fleet Week, which
absolutely.
we hope you all tune into. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'll also add that by the time this airs, the PDF by itself of Utopia Planitia will be available for sale on Drive-Thru in the 2 web stores. So if you don't already, folks, if you don't have it already, by all means, go grab it. If you don't want to pre-order the print copy, although why would you skip out on the awesome print copies, because they look fantastic, right? I haven't seen the actual physical book yet, but I've seen pictures and it looks great. But the PDF, for those of you who aren't ready or can't afford the print version, that's cool. The PDF is available right now as of the airing of this, not while we're recording it, obviously, but it's imminent upon us. Hopefully you'll get a chance to grab it and check it out.
Yeah, fortunate happenstance. I didn't plan this, Jim, but it's just when this episode is going to premiere happened to be during Fleet Week. So the universe is coming together.
This book has been weirdly charmed from the beginning. So I will just say that this book has gotten all the good luck. And, some of our books, I don't want to say any of them were cursed, but like the Klingon Core book got really awkward because of COVID. And it took a long time to come out. And there's like a pre-release PDF and there was a later PDF. It was just I don't want to say it was a mess, but it was just like really wonky because of all the stuff that was involved. But this book has picked up all the good luck. So I'm just grateful for that.
Awesome.
Well,
let's get started. I mean, I love jumping in, since we have the writers right here and the designers of the ships, starting with your favorite pieces that you want people to notice, the stuff you're in love with. I'll go alphabetical by first name. Aaron, why don't you get started with us? Something that you wanted to make sure we know about Chapter 4 of Utopia Planitia.
The little tiny sections in each starship section, entry, I should say, are, I think, little nuggets of gold that if you look through them, you might notice specific things that will tweak your interest, like the primary shipyards. This might be some sort of throwaway thing that most people wouldn't really think about, but I even use it to try to tell little stories about the ships. Like who's building them, starships being built outside of human solar system, the solar system or human settlements. Hey, look, there's more shipyards out there than just around Mars. How Starfleet really was built from multiple different places, and it just kind of grew together into this consolidated whole. Or even showing with the early ship classes how star bases might have developed from more modern to us-ish shipyards like Newport News or, things like that would then develop into these larger shipyards. And the naming conventions, I think, are really important because the little names in there should also tell stories, or at least pique your interest in having a ship out there as an NPC that your crew might encounter and what that ship might entail. Like Leica. I always like using that because that's such an important little piece of space history that most people tend to forget.
Is there a mythos as to why generally the Federation frames, the Starfleet frames had a similar look? Was there one culture that influenced more than others? Is there a mythos around that?
Well, it's a lot of different reasons, but I think that the beta canon explanation is that during the Earth-Romulan War, that Earth-designed spacecraft were generally the core of obviously Starfleet, but also the fight against the Romulans. And since humans generally had technology that they had developed on their own and wasn't based off of Vulcan-derived technologies and Romulan-derived technologies, that Vulcan and Romulan, I should say, they're kind of the same. That they were the best suited to actually go forward and be a little bit surprising in the push outwards into the unknown, where the Romulans still might be lurking.
Got it. Okay, interesting. Thomas, what about you? What's your take and or what's your part that you want us to make sure to know and people who are picking up the book to know about chapter 4?
Well, I want to kind of piggyback off what Aaron said, because I thought it was really cool when I had to write all that stuff for the STO ships. I had to sort of like consider like, oh, what are the primary shipyards that would build the Gagarin class or the Sutherland class, and what is the naming conventions for these ships. And it was a fun mental exercise to go that deep on them, and I appreciated the prompts. As far as I'm obviously very focused on the STO ships that we put in. I think it was fun making up the notable starships, and I think we mentioned it on a previous podcast, or I don't know if it was ModCon or something, but I actually got to put a little Easter egg in there of one of the players, a Star Trek Online player who is a really fantastic artist, and done a lot of Star Trek Online fan art. And so I put a little tribute to her in for the Gagarin's notable starship. It's actually based on the ship that she played in the game. So like writing those little unit histories was a ton of fun, and putting in some Star Trek Online history and lore into the ships was cool to, like I said, sneak in something deeper than just the ship images, but also some of the lore from the game and the missions that you can play in the game. So if somebody STA player sees one of these entries and then goes to try out Star Trek Online, they'll have a cool moment when they're playing the game, like, oh, I remember reading about that, right? And so I think that's it's cool that it works both ways.
Yeah. I imagine there's people who are playing Star Trek Online, doing the entire video gaming, and then coming into Star Trek Adventures with their friends and playing more like the away team mission and a little bit of the slower, more role-playing piece of it. Do you hear about that a lot?
Well, we definitely hear there are quite a few Star Trek Adventures games that are being set in Star Trek Online in that era now with Star Trek Online ships, and I've seen quite a few of those being streamed, which has been a lot of fun for me. And I don't know if I've heard of anybody doing what you're saying in terms of like playing an STA, like mixing the two like that, which would be cool. That would have been something I think would have been easier to do maybe back a long time ago when we still had our Foundry user generated content tool. Rest in peace. But but now, I mean, our I think if you were gonna do that, you would probably build your campaign around the storyline of Star Trek Online, so that you have like, oh, we were doing this during this event in the game, and so you could play the mission in the game, and then do or play your tabletop session and then play the mission in the game together, or vice versa. But that would be fun. I'm not sure if I've heard anybody doing it quite like that yet, but here's an idea.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see someone live streaming, the game Clear Sky style, and then all of a sudden switch to a battle sequence played in Star Trek Online with the same ship. I mean, that would be just, I know someone's going to do it if they haven't already done it.
Yeah. And that would be good for a sort of a campaign where everybody is a captain and you're doing like a squadron level campaign, right? Because in Star Trek Online, every player is a captain of their own ship. So you if you're going to have a space battle, everybody would be, and you have a whole party, everybody would be flying their own ship in the mission.
Sorry, you're stirring when I stroke my non-beard, that means I'm crafty riffing thoughts. Familiar with that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that. We've talked a lot about the ship as a character, and I wanted to delve a little deeper into that with chapter 4. Because we definitely have the notable ships. And what I mean by notable ships is the ones we're familiar with, Voyager, Enterprise, Defiant. We have those ships in there. But we have some other ones that I'm dying to hear people make stories off of. And so if you could talk to us, both Aaron and Thomas, a little bit about the notable starship box that's in each one of these write-ups? What was the intent of it? How would you suggest people use it?
I would use it as like a jumping off point for stories. Honestly, you could use that as the basis for your own campaign. Hey, here's the story that happened right before our characters took command and came on board the ship. Or I have an adventure, a mission that we're going off on, and the ship that was this notable vessel was involved with the prequel basically to what we're dealing with, or was somehow influenced events that we're now dealing with today. And so you have to research what that ship did. I remember there was that ship called Enterprise that encountered that illness that made people act drunk. And yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Okay. Now that we've done the research, now we sort of know what's going on. It has something to do with water molecules being messed with. And okay, great. It's that sort of thing, using it as a springboard for your own imagination. However you want to use it, it's there for you. It's there as a story nugget, or at least several story nuggets in each one of those.
Yeah. Jim, I'm tempted to riff. I mean, the one that's getting me right now, I'll tell you right now, is the Hiawatha. So I'm a big Jet Reno fan from Discovery. She's my second favorite character there. And the ship design alone on that one is beautiful. Now, is this ship design from STO also? It's an STO ship?
No, the Hiawatha is from Star Trek Discovery. It's a canon ship.
Just Discovery, so it doesn't show up in STO at all yet.
Not yet.
Okay. All right. Okay. Because as an example, I mean, when we first come across the Hiawatha class, it's crashed. It's crashed into an asteroid, I believe it was, in Discovery, right? But a fascinating medical frigate that has so many applications in Star Trek. So someone could just adopt it, use the USS Respite. The Respite is an actual vessel that Jet Reno was on, is it, Aaron?
I don't think so. No. The Respite. I wrote the Respite based on the U.S. Navy's own medical ship. Okay. That's what the name comes from.
Yeah. So the reason I'm pointing this out is GMs or players, if you're looking for a ship and you're in the era, you happen to be in the Discovery era, the first 2 seasons Discovery era, you can grab all this information. If you, like me, are just fascinated by this one vessel, you can read this page of information and just take it from there. Set it maybe before it even crashed. Have it, when Jet Reno came on, maybe 3 years before, and just play up to that point with so many modules that are available in the Discovery campaign. Good idea, Jim? Was that something that you would run?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the thing that's got me most excited about this book is, I remember back in the day, and I know I talked about this on some of the other podcasts and videos that we've done, but I grew up on the FASA system and the ship recognition manuals that they came out with, and the old Next Generation Officers Manual that was full of the ship classes that they designed on their own, that they thought kind of sort of fit the aesthetic of the Galaxy class and the Nebula class, based on what little information they had from the first season of Next Gen, and having a chance to look at some of the production sketches and notes and stuff, right? They just kind of extrapolated from there. And I remember, flipping through those books all the time, coming up with stories for all these different classes and of ships, right? And now we have the advantage of having just a ton of canonical ships and the graphics and all this great lore that Aaron and Thomas have created for all these different classes. And it's like, I told you, like when I was editing this chapter, I would find myself stopping over and over again because I would just get these ideas for stories or campaigns to run based on these ships that we've only known for 3 or 4 years. Like Discovery introduced a whole bunch of new classes of ships. Plus, there's a whole bunch of ships that we were able to go into more detail on that were like kit bashes on screen, right? So they were like for the Battle of Wolf 359, the model makers needed just random little wrecked ships in the backgrounds, and so they kind of kit bashed a bunch of stuff. And of course, the fandom picked up on that. They're like, "Oh, what's that class? What's that class? What's that class?" And they figured out from the wreckage what did the thing look like before it was wrecked. And all of a sudden, you've got all these different classes of ships. And it's like, okay, they're canon now because they're on screen. So let's put them in the book. And Aaron, and you did a great job just adding so much cool detail and lore. And I'm thinking now, like as a game master, I kind of want to just run like a bunch of anthology episodes or like one shots, or even like maybe like really limited run things where like I grab a really cool class of ship, run a 3-session story about it, and then go on to the next one. And like, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that's like, using a space station as the hub for stories, and then doing just like a whole bunch of offshoot stories based on a bunch of different classes. I don't know what that looks like. I'm just spitballing, but like that's where my brain has been, is like there's so much cool material in here. And I'm not patting us on the back. I'm just talking as a game master and a huge Star Trek fan. Like there's so much cool material in here. Like the Hiawatha and the Olympic. Like those are the two medical focused ships, and like I would love to do a medical campaign or a medical one shot, or just like a really cool medical focused story, and use one of those two ships. Like that's the great thing about this game, is that we've got one for the original series era, and we've got one for the next gen era. So like pick your era that you like. There's a ship there for you, and it just the fact that we have so many ships in this book now, from the very beginning all the way into STO, means that the story potential that game masters and players can come up with has just grown exponentially, right? I mean, even to the point, like I know, I said, I'm sure you guys are familiar with this too. When I'm playing Star Trek, whether it's STA or some form or version of the game or homebrew or whatever, like I tended to go into a lot of detail on my character backstory, right? To the point where I would lay out, here's the 5 or 6 ships that he or she served on, and here's a couple interesting stories about what that ship got into. Did it get destroyed? Did it get damaged or whatever? And it was always really important to me to be able to pick out what class was that ship, what was its registry number, what was its name, and then what was it really good at doing. And like to translate that into Star Trek Adventures terms, it'd be like, what was its mission profile? What were its talents? What was it good at doing? And now, like, there's just so much more material now to play with. Like, it's not just the traditional ones that I knew and loved for years and years. It's not just the Nebula and the Galaxy and the Constitution and the Excelsior and the Miranda. Like, we've got a bigger vocabulary now because there's so many more classes to play with that we can confidently, can beta canon on. I feel like, this entire book is mostly beta canon, right? Because a lot of it's not official on screen stuff, but certainly the pictures are, and some of the details are certainly canonical, or was really, really well thought out, by Aaron and by Thomas and by the CBS folks or the Paramount folks. So it feels right? It feels like it fits into the setting. So anyway, I'm rambling, so I'll stop. But yeah, it's really just a wealth of cool stuff just to play with, and more tools for your toolbox, right?
No, yeah, you sparked a new question for me though. So Thomas, I'm actually curious. This is more of a Star Trek Online question, because we heard a little bit about how these ships ended up in here a lot from beta canon. Aaron also looked at that Frankenstein fleet kind of stuff from Wolf 359. But Thomas, how does, in the Star Trek Online process, how do you all decide what new ships you're going to add, what new classes of ship you're going to add into the game?
Yeah, usually, obviously, we want to start with the canon ones, and so anytime they add a new canon ship, that gets moved towards the top of the list. The game's been around for almost 13 years, and we're constantly adding new ships as we go. And a lot of it, I think people generally like to be the heroes. So the Federation ships are far and away our most popular ship. Just like, that's why you focus on Starfleet ships for the Utopia Planitia book. But I think at some point it's just this whole cocktail of things of like, is it recent, and is it how much did you see it? Did you see the ship a lot? Was it just in one shot? Did it have a cool special ability that people get really excited about? Did you is there a kind of a hole missing up in our lineup, for example? Like, have we just never done this ship before, or do we have an older version of it but we don't have what we call a tier 6, which is kind of the current endgame stat block version of it? So it's just a whole So does it fill a need in our lineup? Because we release ships, we have a cadence of like, escort, cruiser, science vessel, that kind of thing, where we want to make sure we're not releasing like 5 science vessels in a row, right? We want to make sure there's variety in what we release, right? So we're looking at our release cadence and saying, okay, well, we need an escort around here. Is there a canonical escort we haven't done yet? No, we've done all the canonical escorts. Okay, well, what's a non-canonical escort? Is like an STO version of a ship that we could make that would fill in that hole. So it's a lot of different considerations to decide, like, if we're going to do something canonical or non-canonical, if we're going to like try to make a STO version of something. If we already have a canon design, then in the game that people can fly, then we might say, okay, we're going to take that, like in Akira, for example, and then we're going to make some other spin on the design visually, where it's like, oh, this is a 25th century version of the Akira, or we flirted with the idea of doing a motion picture era Vesta at one point, which we didn't end up doing, but that's the kind of thing that we sort of think about, making these pastiches, because people like, they like canon ships, but they also really like the idea of taking a canon ship and then remixing it almost through a different filter. It's like, I want a TOS Miranda, right? Or I want a a TNG Constitution, or so it's that kind of thing where you can just sort of take these styles and apply them to other designs, and then people get really excited about. It's like, oh, cool! I always wanted a motion picture Akira, right? We don't have that in the game, but that's something that fans have asked for. Or an example we do have is like a motion picture NX-01, which we did a few years ago, which people liked, or a Discovery Excelsior, like Discovery era Excelsior, right? So just crazy stuff, but people really like those kinds of pastiches.
Do you have a quota of how many ships you're pumping out a month or a year?
It's usually about 2 or 3 a month, depending. And then two like, usually it's 2 ships. It averages out to be like 2 ships a month of like new stats, but we're making about 40-ish models a year. And we're doing a lot of that to like remaster old models, or making new variants of like existing stats or whatever. So it just sort of depends on what our opportunity is.
Yeah, this goes to a great question. And next week we're airing an episode with Jody Hauser, Jackson Lansing, and Fred Love, who worked on the Star Trek Year 5 comic and the adaptation.
Oh, nice.
Star Trek Adventures. And this is kind of melding 2 conversations. I know we recorded it before we're airing this one, just because but something came up where we were talking about, there's just so much Star Trek goodness out there right now that people can really make what they want. It sounds like both in Star Trek Online and Star Trek Adventures. And Jim, Thomas, you're probably the best to answer this question. Are we seeing that happen? Are we seeing, at first people were like, oh, there's so much Trek on TV. And now we're seeing it's marketed to different audiences, infinite diversity, infinite combinations. Do we think we're at the threshold of really just more mass Star Trek happening because of all these available options? I'm just curious what you think about that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's kind of the cool thing about Star Trek, and I think it is a smart thing that the people running the franchise now are doing, where we want to make sure that there's a Star Trek out there for everybody. And it's like, well, if Discovery isn't your cup of tea, well, you've got Strange New Worlds, or you've got Lower Decks, right? Like they're kind of turning this into a thing where you can find the niche that you really like. Some people are like, oh, it's all Star Trek, it's all good, right? And that's great. But some people you can focus. I mean, I think fans just need to understand that it's okay if something isn't for you, right? Like just be like, okay, let other people enjoy that. And if that's not for you, awesome. Like you don't have to love it, but all the other old Star Trek still exists, and you've got Star Trek Online, and you've got all these things that you can enjoy if you want to. But you can, just lean into what you like, and don't worry so much if there's something out there that's not for you. That's okay. Not everything has to be for you, but embrace the fact that there is a lot out there that is for you. and play STO or play Star Trek Adventures and make the Star Trek that you want to see, right? Like, we're giving you the tools to do that, to participate in your Star Trek TV show, essentially. So, put a little elbow grease in there and have some fun with it.
Well said.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that I can add really anything more to that other than to say there's so much Star Trek now. I mean, it's 56 years. You got novels, you got comic books, you got video games, you got 11 series, you got 13 movies. I mean, if you love Star Trek, any Star Trek, just remind yourself of what IDIC is and focus on the stuff you like, and don't worry about the stuff you don't like. Like, just accept that some people are going to like the stuff that you don't like, and some people won't like the stuff that you do like, and that's okay, right? Like Thomas just said, it's totally okay to do that because there's just so much of it. There's 1,000 hours plus of Star Trek on screen, not to mention just the reams and reams and millions and millions and millions of words that have been written for Star Trek in novels and comic books, et cetera, et cetera. So like there's something for everybody. Like, literally, I mean, sorry, we talked about this before, that Star Trek as a storytelling vehicle can fit pretty much every genre of story, and it'll still work. Like, you have the science fiction trappings, but like, you can have horror, you can have comedy, you can have broad comedy, you can have romance, terror. I mean, just anything you want is in here somewhere. And like Thomas said, we are super lucky to be in this day and age where we have so many tools available to us to tell whatever Star Trek story we want, whether it's an RPG or a video game or I'm sure there's other venues out there. Like, I mean, you can take the Star Trek Adventures rule set and I mean, we probably have to figure it out, but like, I'm sure you could play it like a solo journaling game with it, right? And just make it happen. Like, if you want to play it by yourself, play it by yourself. If you want to play with a group of friends, play with a group of friends. There's just so much possibilities here. So I think I'll be honest, I'm getting to be old, and I'm getting kind of tired of the people that hate on Star Trek or a specific Star Trek, because they're like, okay, well, so what? We don't care. There's so much other Star Trek that you can love, so go love on that, and let other people enjoy the stuff that you don't like. It's not a big deal.
Well, I want to add to that too. Next, I don't give spoilers, but next week, boy, is a point made by Jackson Lansing and Jody Hauser about that point, and just I'm resonating off of it. Yeah. But what I like about this, like going even to Utopia Planitia Chapter 4 again with all the variety of ships, we're living in a day and age now where if you are really passionate about Star Trek and you decide maybe blog about the adventures of your ship or write up something creative, you don't know who's going to notice you. We talked before with Nathan Dowdell in our interview with him a couple weeks back, where myself, Jim, and Nathan all got our start. Just, we weren't doing it for money. We were just passionate about Star Trek, and then someone noticed. And same thing with a lot of the creatives out here. And if you love Star Trek, make your own story. It enables you to do that, share it with others, and join the community, which enables you. And so to me, it amazes me. I don't think that there's another, I'm probably going to be wrong about this, so I'm not going to say it. I don't know another franchise where they make ships such a great personality that it becomes part of your story intrinsically and can get people engrossed into your story because maybe they're fascinated with that particular ship or something like that. So pardon my ignorance if I don't know everything happening out there. But for Star Trek, I know this is the first time I've seen a book where you're basing it and celebrating the ships of the line in there, right? Thomas and Aaron, other things that we should know that about Chapter 4, what inspired you and what your main focus maybe was with that chapter?
I liked referencing other science fiction ideas, or let's say stories, in some of the names of the ships. I know that a couple people have actually seen a few of the references, but there's like a couple really, I would say, vague ones. And the one I should probably point out is Balak which is the Daedalus class. That's really obscure, and it would probably only make sense to me, and that's why I have to bring it up. But I mean, it boils down to all these names that I use are generally jumping off points for ideas. But Balak comes from a really interesting book series called The Destroyermen by Taylor Anderson. I don't know if any of you have actually read this, but it all centers on this World War II destroyer crew that falls through a hole in time and space, and they end up on a different Earth, and they're off on their own, and they end up on an Earth that is also fighting a war, but it's with non-humans, and there are cities that are named after cities on our Earth because they encountered humans from our world before, and one of the cities is Balikpapan down in the South Pacific. So I kind of wanted to give a nod to that book series as, hey, look, that's kind of a neat name. I appreciate these other stories that sometimes seep into my mind after reading them for quite a while. And hey, if you get the reference, you get the reference, and we can move on.
That's cool. I love treasures like that. Knowing that makes me always go back and I feel like read it again. So I appreciate that for sure. Thomas, what about you?
I think we've covered a lot of it already. I think I think it was fun to go into the kind of the history and the capabilities kind of divorced from the game. But one of the things I really enjoyed was taking some of the abilities from the game and then like trying to figure out how would that translate to STA, and like how to make a special ability based on these like really crazy console powers we have in Star Trek Online. So console powers are just unique abilities every ship has. When you buy a ship, you get a special ability you can use for that ship. So like saucer separation, the Galaxy class is an example, right? And so some of these so taking the the console power that came with the ship and then figuring out like, okay, well, how would this apply in the STA combat environment or ship ship role playing or whatever. And I was I wasn't sure you were gonna let me do it, but the Aquarius on the Odyssey, I was very pleased that survived.
Talk to us about that.
What'd you say?
Talk to us about that.
So the Odyssey class is a huge starship, right? It's longer, much longer than a Galaxy class ship, and so I had it actually be a skill 7, which is massive and gives it extra ability, extra capability, and one of the things that the Odyssey class does, because it's so big, is it actually has an embedded, we call it in the game, call it an embedded escort, which is a little like frigate size ship that it is docked in the ship. It's kind of like a multi-vector assault mode on the Prometheus, but it can detach this frigate size ship, and eventually it's essentially Defiant sized. So the special rule for the Odyssey class is like you can essentially summon a Defiant class ship to come and fight with you. And then the idea to, I don't know, balance is really a thing in this case, but the idea is that if you use the Aquarius, because the Aquarius power systems are supplementing and crew are supplementing the Odyssey when they're docked, it actually reduces the scale of the ship while you have the other ship flying around, right? As just sort of a counterbalance. So it's just kind of it's just kind of a fun thing, and just sort of a wild, like, the Odyssey is meant to be sort of like the most powerful ship that Starfleet has ever built, right? And so how do you communicate that in the rules? And that was something that I tried to make clear, that like if you're in an Odyssey, you're doing a campaign on an Odyssey, you should be fighting Borg cubes every other day, right? Like you should be going after the hardest, toughest missions that Starfleet has, because you're in the most powerful starship that Starfleet's ever made.
I still don't think it's tough enough for a Borg cube, personally. Kind of scary. So everyone out there, don't get cocky and just into the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah, I mean, when I read it, Thomas, I really liked the idea, because it was something different, and it's something we hadn't really seen before, and it was an evolution of everything that we've seen. Going an evolution of like the Galaxy class and having the little captain's yacht underneath it, and then the Voyager having the Aero shuttle. It was just an evolution. It was not just, but it was an evolution of that. And I was like, sure, why not? I mean, I could easily envision playing a game with the Odyssey, with an Odyssey class ship, like out there pushing the envelope of the outer edge of the Federation, out there on their own. Why not have a fairly powerful escort supporting them to help them out? I mean, it's almost like the Odyssey's, at that point, is almost like a mini a mini starbase unto itself, right?
Right.
With so much capability and stuff. So I was like, oh, this is so cool because it literally is even more tools for a game master and a group of players to think about and play with, and like expand your possibilities beyond what we've known in the 24th century. That by the time Voyager and Nemesis came out, we're like, okay, what's next? and of course, they went on to other things, and fortunately, the STO kind of carried it forward and came up with just some amazing ideas. And now the producers are kind of coming back to it with Lower Decks and Picard a little bit. I'm really curious to see what they do with season 3 of Picard as to like what's that going to look like, because I know a lot of fans like me, we grew up on Next Gen and DS9 and Voyager. Like we want to know, okay, how's that piece of the story continue? What's happening in the Alpha Quadrant? What's happening in the Beta Quadrant?
Right.
And just really curious to see what all that looks like. And in the meantime, we've got STO and all the great content you've created over 13 years. It's hard to imagine. It's hard to believe it's been that long. I can't wrap my head around that.
You're telling me. I mean, I've been working on the game for like 12 of those years. So.
Wow, that's awesome. Very cool.
And some of the game masters guidance we continually give, and this couples with the last show we do, Thomas and Aaron, is make the game what you want of it too. We talked one show about how to build and how to use space frames and how to assign points. And then we're looking at these fantastic ships like the Odyssey. We know that we're going to have a whole bunch of new ships in the 32nd century as we explore Discovery more. And don't let yourself be pressured. I'm not giving spoilers to what we talk about next week. I promise not to use the word until next week. You have to tune in. But don't be pressured by people who aren't open to the change. It's your storytelling. You're writing your story, just like an STO. You're designing your ship the way you want it to look. It's for you. The game is for you. And so that's what I get out of this, again, is that these are great frames to use as a basis. You can stick with them and use exactly what's designed in here, or you can tweak them to do amazing things that no one's ever seen before on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. You should be able to say, hey, look, I want my New Orleans class starship, but maybe this one's built, in Andor. So instead of having modular laboratories, it has like a rapid fire torpedo system. It's my story. I want to tell it. I really like the style of the New Orleans class, but I want to just, tweak it a little bit, make it your own, make it your story. We have just given you ideas to jump off from.
And then share with us too in the community, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Share with the community. Share with the all the different Facebook groups, Discord groups, etc. But also go to Continuing Mission. Like it's the premier STA fan site for a reason, right? There's so much great content on there, so go add to it. But yeah, I'll just echo what you were saying and just say, look, I know especially newer gamers, like they look at the printed books and they're like, that's the truth, right? That's the game canon. And I've been kind of trying to, like, over the last 5 years with this game, it's like I've been trying to encourage people, like, look, honestly, we're a group of hardcore Star Trek fans and gamers. This is our best guess, right? But this is not canon, right? We Paramount does not have a secret library of what they think all these ships should be, and we're hewing to that, right? We're just making a guess based on what we've seen on screen and based on our collective knowledge and Aaron's collective knowledge and everybody else's collective knowledge to say, okay, here's what we think a Galaxy class looks like stat-wise for this game, right? And our opinion, which is what this is, and just because we happen to be in the position to print our opinion, which is kind of nice, but ultimately it's our opinion. Like, if you don't agree with it, change it, because like this system is so flexible. You're not gonna like screw up the balance. You're not gonna screw up the challenge ratings of anything by tweaking the numbers or whatever. Like, you're just gonna have a different experience at the game table with your group of players. So like if you want to get into a long involved debate with Aaron and Nathan and myself online about why the Galaxy class has a 10 structure when you're absolutely confident it should have a 9, then we're not gonna fight you over. We're not gonna die on that hill. Go change it. It's not gonna hurt us. We're not gonna come to your house and tell you no. The Galaxy it's right there in the book. Read the book, because it's just tools. It's just our guess. So like if you have a different vision, then by all means change it. We've given you everything tool wise that you could possibly need to change these space frames or create your own. Right? It's all in this one book. It's all here. So go have fun and make like literally anything you can imagine, because that's really at this point that's your only limitation.
Yeah. I have one last question for Thomas, and then maybe we get into the wrap up here, and we'll plug Fleet Week a little bit. Thomas, is there some, again, part of my ignorance, is there some sort of award for STO ship design, like if fans are designing ships? Is there any kind of competition for that?
So we've done a couple different contests in the past. I mean, the Enterprise F actually was from a fan contest.
Really?
Yeah, back in 2011, we wanted a new Enterprise for Star Trek Online because it takes place, back then there was no Picard, right? So it was 30 years after Nemesis, and so we were like, okay, we want a new Enterprise. And so we talked to CBS about designing a new Enterprise. And it was because they had done the Design the Titan contest and we're happy with how that turned out. They said, well, let's do a Design the Enterprise contest. And so we got a bunch of fan submissions for it and took the winning design by Adam Isle. And then, the Cryptic artists did their spin on it, right? And put it into the game. And so so we did that. So the Enterprise itself is actually kind of a fan design in that way. And then we've also done other things where we've had sort of bracket competitions where it's like we'll do like let's design this ship with a community, and we'll have different options that people can vote for, and so fans will vote, well, I like option A better, or like option B better, and then like it collapsed down into kind of like a March Madness kind of thing, and then like you end up with the thing that most people have voted for at the end. And so that's kind of a community driven design art direction by community, but those have been fun. We've done those a few times over the course of the history of the game.
That sounds super fun. So I'll compliment one last applaud to Star Trek, always getting the fans involved in the design of almost everything.
Yeah. Well, and one more thing I do want to say is it's not really a competition, but we do have a live stream every Tuesdays for Star Trek Online called 10 Forward Weekly, run by our community manager. You can watch it on the Cryptic Studios Twitch channel, which I think is just twitch.tv/Cryptic Studios, which incidentally, that's where Fleet Week will be tomorrow when you're watching this. But every week people submit their fan art and it's shared on that live stream. So if you do want to see some Star Trek fan art and some Star Trek Online screenshots, you can tune in to 10 Forward Weekly and get a healthy dose of it.
Nice, really nice. I love that. People think that what I think people don't realize sometimes when they're playing the game is that as creators, we are eager to see this. I tuned into a game today on Twitch. Myself and Aaron did a little bit, and we're just excited listening to people play the game. And we're commenting on it. We're trying not to stress them out that they have the writers of the modules there listening.
Nice.
But yeah. I just think, again, another wonderful thing about Star Trek Adventures. Aaron, you want any final comments? Anything you want to share before we start wrapping up?
No, just really enjoy the little nuggets that you find. If you find something that kind of tickles your funny bone in a lot of these entries, it's probably there for a reason. It's probably there to make you make connections in your head and go, oh, I can do that in a game. It's there for a reason. And I really want everyone that's watching and reading this book to enjoy those bits.
Good. All right, Jim, let's get to a wrap up and pump up Fleet Week. Let's talk a little bit about it for those who maybe are late to the chase. And this is, they tune in Friday morning at 6 a.m. in Pacific Standard Time to this and maybe never heard of Fleet Week before. Let's do a little pump up for that as to why they might want to tune in, Jim.
Yeah, I think, Fleet Week was just kind of generated by Thomas and myself and some of the folks at STO and Modiphius, just kind of like throwing stuff around in an email. And we said, well, why don't we make this a big event similar to what we did with the Klingon stuff a couple years ago? And we were all on board with it because, it's easy to it's relatively easy to put together. And then we had a lot of energy behind it, and it just happened. And we've got a lot of great resources out there in terms of like the schedule of events. All the information that you need is out there. All the panels that are coming up. There's some great panelists like Thomas. I'm still envious of your deep Rolodex of production and talent that you're able to get to that we just haven't had the opportunity yet. But now we're starting to make some inroads thanks to you. and you're going to see fruits of that probably in the next year or so. But I can't wait. I just need to figure out how to clear my schedule on Saturday so that I can attend everything just to watch and enjoy it, in addition to actually being on the one STA panel. But I want to watch all these other panels. They just look fascinating topics, great people, really smart folks. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope everybody else is too. Not just on the panel, but just everybody watching this. I hope you have an opportunity to at least watch some of it. I honestly don't know if it's going to be recorded or not. I will assume it's going to be recorded, but I don't know, Thomas. Do you know offhand?
I don't know yet. I mean, we're going to be doing it on Zoom, so we can at least record it. That way, I'm going to talk to Mike and see what we can do about that. I think the main issue is we just need to make sure. I don't know if Twitch has the whatever, or what Cryptic has, the whatever Twitch partnership level you need to like keep video on demands, right? Yeah. So that's the trick, but we'll try to figure something out. I really want it to be recorded as well. Yeah. We just need to find a place for it once we do record them. So but yeah, so I think the Modifius panel, I believe, is at 4 p.m. Pacific tomorrow. 2? Oh, 2. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have it in front of me. 2 o'clock.
Yeah,
but it'll be really cool, no matter what. Yeah.
Yeah, it is 2. So we'll do we're doing 2, and then I'll be on a couple panels throughout the day, and then in the preceding week, I guess it will have been too late by the time people listen to this. There'll be other live streams and stuff. So hopefully you got to check those out. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I really appreciate all your support, Jim and Michael and Aaron, getting all this together. I think it's gonna be a great event. And it's great to celebrate Star Trek spaceships, and I'm kind of hopeful too that it's not just an event for people who are super into spaceships, but people who maybe they like some of these personalities that are going to show up, and then they sort of come away from it with a deeper passion for the subject, right? And I hope that that's the thing that happens.
Well, I mean, we're living in an amazing time right now where, we're watching satellites crash into asteroids,
right?
By design. Yeah. So really, for so many, I mean, I don't think I can think of an astronomer or someone who works at NASA who will claim to have not been inspired by Star Trek at some point in their life. So to me, Fleet Week is amazing because not only did you line up actual scientists who are working in the industry of aeronautics and science and physics and stuff like that, but then you have all these creatives, from people who are doing live stream shows to writers like Aaron, Jim. If you're a graphic designer and have curious about how they're designing the ships, I mean, it's something for everybody, which really boggled my mind that you pulled that together so quick. So I'm really looking forward to participating, but actually very interested in listening to the other panels myself too. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, that's what we do on Continuing Conversation, folks. We dig deep. We're beyond the book. We're beyond the screen. And we really get into the brain of the creatives, and with the goal of inspiring you to tell your own Star Trek stories and continuing the conversation with us. So I always like to do the shout outs. I'll go ahead and start them off, and then we'll go around. We'll do Aaron, Thomas, and end with Jim. I'm shouting out today Crossroads Games in Standish, Maine. In fact, they're going to be doing a Star Trek Adventures demo within the month of October also. So that's really great. Al Spader, one of our writers, freelance writers for Star Trek Adventures, and bloggers on Continuing Mission, is going to run a demo game. So we really love when game masters breed game masters. So thank you for that, Al, and thank you Crossroads Games in Maine for hosting. That's my thank you this week. Let's give Aaron, Thomas, and then Jim your shout outs.
Boy, I went into a pretty cool gaming store on my last trip for doing historical reenacting, and it was Top Cut Comics in Rockford, Illinois. Pretty cool.
Sounds good. Hey, Top Cut.
Nice.
Thomas.
Yeah, I want to shout out to Ash Said. I think it's Ash Said Hi on Twitch. She's been streaming. She's new. She's been streaming a lot of retro games and stuff, but she just started playing Star Trek Online recently. So it's always fun seeing somebody play the game, for the first time and getting into it, get excited about it. So yeah.
Love it. And Jim, take us out.
Yeah, 2 shout outs, and these are both pretty broad, but I'll throw them out there anyway. I want to shout out, and I've done this before, but I want to do it again, mostly because at the very top of the show, Thomas mentioned in passing that he was sketching starships when he was a kid, and that reminded me that I was doing that too. And I want to thank Matt Jeffries and everybody who was ever involved in Star Trek, sketching out starships, designing starships, kit bashing them, making them physical models, CGI models, whatever. Because I remember when I was a kid, the shape of the Constitution class ship was so simple that a 6-year-old could figure it out with a circle, a plus sign, and 2 lines. That's your Enterprise. Top down, you're good to go. And I remember like hours and hours and hours of scratch paper. I would draw little stick Enterprises and little stick birds of prey, because the birds of prey is pretty much a simple shape too, right? Ultimately, when you look at it from a kid's perspective. And I would do little pew pew battles with them and stuff, and it was just ridiculous, but it was so fun. And it's a testament to all those designers who probably knew, if not intentionally, but at least subconsciously, if we can make this a simple shape, simple and recognizable, your job is done, right? And it's endured for 56 years.
We could have a whole hour just discussion about that, about the power of simplicity, and how ship design is actually like logo design or like a cartoon character design, right? So I mean, like, that was actually one of the things when they were designing Deep Space Nine. They had all these really the concept from the script was like, oh, this is essentially an oil refinery in space, right? And so they had all these drawings of like super giant oil rig kind of looking contraptions, very complicated, lots of pipes and stuff. And Rick Berman came in and he was like, it has to be something a child can draw, right? And so then when he laid that edict down, that's when you got the really iconic circle with the rings and the 3 pylons and everything like that. So it's something that I think is really part of the power of Star Trek ships and how they've endured for 50 years.
Well, I will be taking note for a future show, and you'll invite Tobias along and some of the other designers, and I think that would be an amazing show to talk about in the future.
And Thomas, I love that you brought that example up, because I have the Making a DS9 book, and that's one of the sections I highlighted in it.
Oh, nice.
Because that Berman quote saying, it needs to be a simple shape that a kid from across the room can see. That's Star Trek, and that's the ship, and it's just a simple design that they can draw. So totally, I love it. I love that you brought that up. Anyway, so thanks to everybody involved in creating starships and designing starships and building starships, et cetera, et cetera. The other thank you shout out that I want to do, of course, is always going to be to the fans of this game and the fans of Star Trek in general. So supportive, so great. We could not possibly do this game without you. It would just be going out into the void, and then Modiphius would stop making it. So thank you so much for all your support, all your criticisms, all your positive comments, all the streams that you do online. Like, Michael, you said you dropped in on one the other day, and I do that too. I don't make myself known. I'm just a voice. I'm just a face in the list of names or whatever. But I do peek in the middle of the night on people that are posting and streaming, because I just want to see what they're doing with the game. Like, I don't stay for long. Only 15, 20 minutes, because that's about what I can manage before I got to get on to other stuff. But you never know who's watching. So I'm really excited to see what people do with this book and start creating their own ships, and even more of their own ships and their own environments and stuff, just to see where this goes. And so thank you to all the fans. I know we don't ever say it often enough. So thank you, everybody, for all your support. We're very, very grateful. I'm very grateful.
That's right. Tell us your stories. We care. All right. So hopefully, again, you all tune in for Fleet Week tomorrow, the full day run, which is available. You'll see the link posted with this article. And until later, keep boldly going wherever your games will take you. IBIC.
Be safe, be well, live long and prosper. We'll see you next time.